Don't you dare!
Oh my God! You don't get to talk about him like that!
You think this helps, hitting me?
Please, both of you, just stop. I loved him too. Then act like it.
Breathe, all right?
Don't touch her. That was the first thing I heard. Daniel's voice trembling between shock and fury. Shoppers froze. The fluorescent lights above buzzed, like they too were holding their breath. In front of me, his mother stood clutching her cheek. The red imprint of a stranger's hand burning against her skin. No explanation. No apology. Just the sickening realization that a simple grocery trip had turned into something twisted and hateful. People whispered. Phones recorded. The man who struck her tried to step back, but it was too late. This was the moment everything unraveled. The moment a billionaire's son refused to stay silent. This is the story of the day a family's dignity was challenged in the unlikeliest of places. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. Before that afternoon in the supermarket, life felt steady, almost predictable, the way routines can wrap around a person like a familiar blanket. I'd been married to Daniel for 3 years, long enough to settle into the quiet comfort of knowing someone deeply, yet still discovering pieces of him through the people he loved. His mother, Evelyn, was one of those pieces, elegant, warm, and endlessly patient. A black woman who carried grace in her posture and wisdom in her voice. She became the anchor I didn't know I needed. Every Sunday, we made it a habit to visit her, sometimes staying for hours as she told stories that stretched across generations. Her laughter filled her small home like sunlight, and even Daniel, who rarely slowed down from his billion-dollar responsibilities, softened in her presence. It was a kind of peace I cherished. A world that felt untouched by conflict, protected by love and familiarity. That morning, we had planned something simple, just a trip to the supermarket before heading to Evelyn's house. She insisted she needed only a few things, but Daniel preferred to go with her anyway, claiming it gave him an excuse to escape endless emails. I tagged along because these little moments with her always left me feeling grounded. Nothing felt out of the ordinary. The aisles buzzed with weekend shoppers. The smell of baked bread drifted from the bakery section. Evelyn hummed as she compared produce, one hand gently touching peaches, like she was testing their stories as much as their ripeness. Yet, beneath that easy calm, there was something else. Something subtle. A stiffness in the air I couldn't place. A look exchanged near the front registers between two employees. A lingering stare from a man in a store uniform who didn't look away when Evelyn caught his eye. I brushed it off. We all did. But later I would replay those moments again and again, realizing they were early ripples. Of the storm that was already forming, one that would shatter the illusion of safety we thought surrounded us. The first sign that something was wrong came so quietly. It almost didn't register. Evelyn placed a carton of eggs into the cart, and as she moved forward, the same employee who had been staring earlier stepped deliberately into her path. Not an accident, not a near miss. A calculated, unmoving block. Evelyn slowed, then gently maneuvered around him, refusing to let irritation disturb her calm. Daniel and I exchanged glances, an unspoken question hanging between us. But we followed her lead and kept going. Still, the energy in the store began to shift, tightening like a rope pulled slowly at both ends. As we made our way through the aisles, we noticed more eyes following her than usual. Not the casual kind of curiosity people sometimes have. This was sharper, colder, in judgment disguised as attention. I felt it crawling across my skin, though none of it was directed at me. Evelyn sensed it too. Her humming quieted. Her shoulders straightened. She kept moving with grace, but her movements grew more purposeful, like someone aware of being watched. When we reached the checkout area, the tension deepened. Only one register was open, though 2 employees stood behind another empty lane, talking, glancing over. The line was long, but Evelyn didn't complain. She waited patiently, her hands resting gently on the cart handle. A few people behind us began to murmur, tapping their feet, shifting restlessly. Then the man from earlier appeared again. He walked up to the counter, leaned in close to the cashier, and whispered something while nodding toward Evelyn. The cashier stiffened, then suddenly signaled to close the lane. Without warning, She flipped the light off and placed a sign down, telling everyone in the line to move elsewhere. But she didn't look at Evelyn when she did it. She looked past her, as if avoiding eye contact was easier than confronting the wrongness of the action. People groaned, frustrated, but it was Evelyn who seemed to absorb the weight of the moment, not because the lane closed, but because she understood this wasn't inconvenience. This was targeting. Daniel stepped forward slightly, instinctively protective, but before he could say anything, another employee approached Evelyn. His expression was tight, his tone sharp without being outright aggressive. He motioned toward her cart, gesturing for her to step aside, as if she were in the wrong place, as if she were causing disruption simply by existing. The message was clear: she didn't belong here. Evelyn held her ground with quiet dignity, but the room felt like it tilted. The people in line stopped talking. Some watched with curiosity, others with discomfort. A few turned away, choosing silence over involvement. The employee's impatience grew. He stepped closer, too close, asserting dominance through presence alone. Evelyn kept her gaze steady, but her fingers tightened around the handle of the cart. My heartbeat quickened. Daniel's jaw clenched so hard, the muscles trembled. Something ugly was brewing, rising like a dark tide we couldn't stop. I didn't know how far it would go. I didn't know how quickly control could vanish, but I could feel it, the moment just before everything breaks. It happened so fast that for a moment, my mind couldn't process what my eyes were seeing. The employee stepped even closer to Evelyn, demanding she move her cart aside. She stood her ground, not confrontational, just steady, dignified, unwilling to shrink herself. But something in her calm seemed to ignite the worst in him. His face twisted with a kind of anger that had nothing to do with groceries or lines or carts. And then, without warning, he raised his hand. The sound of the slap cracked through the supermarket like a breaking branch in a silent forest. Sharp, violent, echoing. Evelyn's head snapped to the side, her hand flying to her cheek. Her body staggering just an inch, but enough to make the world stop. For one breath, no one moved. Not a single shopper. Not the employees. Not even the children in the nearby aisle. It was as if the entire store had been plunged underwater, soundless and suspended. Then I heard Daniel's breath, shallow, breaking, dangerous. Something primal rose in him, a fury I had never seen. The kind born from watching someone you love violated with impunity. The room vibrated with his presence as he stepped forward, each stride controlled but trembling with restrained power. The employee stumbled back, suddenly aware of the storm he had unleashed. Whispers shot through the crowd. Phones lifted. A manager rushed over, already pale. Evelyn lifted her chin, still holding her cheek, but her eyes, those calm, wise eyes, held a pain that sliced through the air. This was the moment everything changed. This was the moment the truth could no longer be ignored. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. In the minutes that followed, the supermarket transformed from a place of routine errands into a stage where accountability could no longer be delayed. Daniel's voice, steady but burning with authority, cut through the rising chatter. The manager, visibly shaken, tried to stutter explanations, claims of misunderstanding, confusion, miscommunication, but no arrangement of words could erase what dozens of shoppers had witnessed or what their cameras had captured. Evelyn stood silently, her dignity intact despite the sting on her cheek. When Daniel wrapped an arm protectively around her, the entire store seemed to shift. People who had stayed silent now stepped forward. A woman approached, apologizing through tears. Another man offered the footage he had recorded. One by one, voices joined, not to speak over Evelyn, but to stand beside her. By the time authorities arrived, the narrative was no longer controlled by the employee who acted on prejudice or the store trying to salvage its reputation. It belonged to truth, supported by witnesses who refused to let injustice fade quietly into the background. The incident didn't end in that store. It rippled outward. Daniel used his influence not for vengeance, but for visibility, to protect his mother and highlight a pattern far bigger than this single moment. Policies changed, and training improved, and Evelyn, despite the trauma, chose healing over bitterness, refusing to let one act define her spirit. But the impact remained. A reminder that racism is not always loud. It often hides in everyday places, waiting for silence to protect it. The real question is, how many more quiet moments like this go unseen? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories and new videos every day.